What's up, guys? We have a new game against Mohsen Al Fayed. 1500 provisional, so could be like a 100. He opens up with e3 f4. We have not seen this in the speedrun yet. The drawback is it opens up his king a little early and he has yet to develop a piece. So I'm going to continue developing. Now I have two pieces in the center. I am going to now put a pawn in the center, attack his f pawn, open up my bishop's diagonal, and he now brings his knight out, which puts pressure on the center, but allows me to take as well as push. Take, take. His f pawn is kind of like, what's it doing there? Also push. His knight has to go somewhere. I'm not really sure where. They both look good though. I don't know. I'm just gonna push. We'll play more of a space game than an attack game this time around. We'll kick his knight and we'll say, where are you gonna go? So he goes in the center, offering the trade. His pawn will kind of be here. It's a little interesting. I'm actually going to encourage him to do the trade by playing d6, opening up our light square bishop. He doesn't go for the trade. He retreats the knight. The downside is when you do this, you have to make sure your knights have more like mobility, right? So if I keep attacking it, for example, b5, he can take it. If he couldn't take it, that knight would be trapped and he would walk into b4. So a6 isn't a dumb move. It actually creates the very subtle threat of b5. You could just develop pieces. I'm gonna go a6. It stops future stuff. So he develops a rook. Maybe he's gonna play for this, but he's not taking into account anything about his king. So I'm gonna go b5, and he didn't notice the subtle threat. A6 looks like a waste of time, but it's actually a forcing move because he has to go back and walks directly into this. And so you had to address it. That's why it's forcing. And so that's why a6 isn't a dumb move. And I tried to explain the logic behind it. Those are actually some of my favorite moves because, like, when you go rook g1, I know what you're planning, right? You're planning to push the pawn. But if I go a6, a lot of times people think they don't know what I'm planning. They think it's just like a whatever move. So it's extremely sneaky. Okay, so he develops the bishop and attacks the knight. But what? We take the free piece and now he's got another free piece hanging. That's two free pieces. Okay, so he moves one and takes the pawn, but we'll just take... Now we're up two pieces. I mean, he got a pawn, but come on. So we're just going to develop with tempo on the knight. We're up two pieces. His king is in the center. Maybe we can just checkmate him. He moves the knight, but since we're up everything, we're just going to trade without thinking. And then we want to get our queen in the game. The knight's in the way. We move the knight with tempo so we can get our queen in. Try to checkmate the guy. Our bishop's staring beautifully. We got to get him more stuff. I mean, we're going to win either way up two pieces in 7 minutes, so... He goes here, threatens our pawn, blocks the diagonal, and protects this pawn. Multi-purpose move. But we're going to actually push past. It's defended. And now his pawns look a little ridiculous. So he attacks the pawn and he attacks the knight. Both of those make sense. I don't care about the pawn. I'm just trying to see what to do with my knight. You could try to defend it. You could defend it with c6. You could jump it in here. I'm gonna I'm gonna go with c6 because it opens up another avenue for the queen, and it's a pawn, so it's always safe defending a piece. He can take this. I don't care. I mean, not with the queen, obviously, but with the bishop, doesn't matter. Bishop e7 and castle. I'm perfectly fine. I have the rook. I have the queen, bishop. Okay, so he does just take the pawn, but this wastes time trying to wing back your pawn. I'm just gonna go bishop e7 so I can castle, and then I'll put the bishop on f6. And then all my pieces will be ready to checkmate him. Or I'll go rook e8. So he goes rook b1. It takes control of the file, but also walks into this kinda. He could go here, so we need a response. Also, we can take the bishop at any point if we want it. But we're just gonna castle because we want to put a rook on the e file because that's priority for our attack to try to end the game quicker. Anytime we go queen a5, bishop back, so you have to have a response ready. You don't want to jump your knight in and pin yourself without calculation, so we're not doing that. Moves, bishop f6. Okay, so he brings his rook in, which is kind of a good idea, except that it hangs. So without any thinking, we're going to take the rook and he's going to resign. He's not going to resign. So we're going to take the bishop next because we're up a lot of stuff. And then we're going to rook here and create the pin. And then we have a double check here. We have a check here. We have rook takes. This is game over. These are the moves my eyes see. Okay, so we're going to give this check. And then we're going to take the queen. He walks right into it. Is there a way to turn off playing provisional rated people? Is that a thing? So now I'm just going to set up a checkmate net by putting my queen and my rook on somewhere here. Also my bishop's here, but whatever. So he tries to, I don't know where he's going with this king. There's nowhere to run. There's no more room in the chessboard. There's no file IJK. I'm just gonna sack my bishop just to have a clean lines, clean open board. And then I'm gonna do this brilliant move c5, which opens this up. Can't go here because that's checkmate. You have to block with your pawn. Never mind. Instead, we give him the checkmate, and we play someone who's not provisional. Crancer, 1431. We open up with the bishop's opening. He develops his knight. We develop our knight. He closes his pawn chain. We close our pawn chain. Very similar stuff, just our bishop's outside, his is inside. So we have a little more active position. We're ready to play f4. After he develops the knight towards the center, controlling the central squares, we play f4. Now we're ready to play. He goes a6, ready to expand with tempo on our bishop, but we continue our development and our plans. He develops his light square bishop. This attacks our knight and pins it. We're going to go h3 saying, are you going to take this? And if not, why is your bishop here? He could take it, but then we get the light square bishop, so I don't mind that. he doesn't. He goes back instead and attacks our bishop. We could take, let him take, maybe attack the pawn, maybe he defends it with the queen. You could do that, but I don't want to do that, so if we push the pawn and he takes and we take, that's interesting. I'm gonna gain a little space on his side of the board, force him to take. It does give us this funny structure, but we can at some point hop our knight into here. So he develops his queen and prepares long castle. We do want to hop our knight in here, but we don't want to undefend this pawn. So that's something to keep in mind. We also want to castle long. So that's another thing to keep in mind. We want control of this square. So we're going to attack his knight, which controls that square. And then we're going to take the knight. Maybe we can get him to waste a turn kicking us. That would be nice. If he castles long, I was going to say his rook would be there. So he moves his knight back, probably to play something like f6, but this wastes time, gives me the time I need. It also undefends the center, so now I can jump this in. And after yeah, I'm going to immediately jump in now that he's no longer pressuring my center. And if f6 his pieces, or h6 his pieces are pretty garbage. Okay, so I could go back here because it still has this diagonal option because there's no f2 pawn. This also prevents him from well, I guess if he develops the bishop here, I don't really want to trade. So I'm going to develop it here, where it's nice, active, controls the center. Okay, so now he castles long. So what can I do? I feel like b4 is protected by the knight. Kind of starts a pawn storm. I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave my king in the center for now, because the center is kind of under my control. And because it's under my control, I get to choose when I play this stuff. So he moves his knight out of the tempo and challenges my strong knight in the center. That makes sense. So I guess I should leave this pawn here to recapture. What else can I reorganize? So if he takes this and this, maybe I should just castle now. I'm going to use this opportunity. Maybe not yet. Maybe I wait 1 or 2 turns of castling. Maybe I'm just going to go queen d3, improving my queen, controlling more stuff, and so that when he takes and I take, my queen is supporting these light squares, supporting the b5 push. What did he do? He goes g5. This looks like it's pawn storming me, but he pushed past. So I'm not going to en passant him. I'm just going to leave it blocked. Because if I could block everything off, my king is safe. If I go here, and he pushes, he can lose a pawn. If I go here, I mean, if I try to close everything up, he can only go here, which would hang the pawn. I could also just go g3. Again, if he tries to advance, it would hang the pawn. If he goes this one, actually I can't lock it up because my knight's in the way, but that would still hang that pawn. At the end of the day, what is this knight doing here, though? I think we should get it out of the way, and then whatever he does, we'll just lock it up. We'll lock up And we'll move this towards the side of the board where we're about to attack his king. So it's like a 2-in-1 idea. You know, if he goes h5, we go g3, and then whichever pawn he pushes, you push the other one, it locks. So he goes bishop g7, but he's staring into nothing. He's actually asking for this, although whatever. So let's try to open up his king side. How do we do this? There's moves like a5, moves like rook b1. We could castle. I'm going to start with a5, gaining even more space, getting even another unit of attack in. He develops his knight back to where it was a long time ago. But again, this doesn't really do anything. This knight's already attacking mine. It's whatever. Now I'm going to thrust with b5 because he created a hook with a6. He pushes past because he doesn't want to open things up. So now I have two choices because I don't want him to close things down. I either have to play for c5 or I can immediately go b6. If I go b6, he can then push past. So that's less than ideal because then it locks things up. So, but if we play c5, we're weakening the knight's control. So we have to do it in a good way. We can also hunt this pawn. So for example, b6, he kicks our knight. We take something, he moves, and then we hunt this pawn. Let's do that. Let's jettison our pawn. If he takes, he loses to royal fork. If he pushes past, which is what I thought he would do, we can trade for a knight or just jump it in here and be super annoying. But trading for a knight's more forcing. So I think this move, without calculating, it puts his bishop on a really dumb square in front of the pawn. It makes no sense for him, so I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to improve this knight here, and now he can't defend that pawn. So it looked like he was closing the position, but now I'm going to be able to open it because of that pawn. And then I'm going to push the a pawn all the way up the board. Notice he has no equivalent attack. His pieces are actually in the center, so he would need to try to break the center with something like d5, but it's under my control pretty well. He doesn't want to open his king up even further. And he goes for it, because what else to do? Maybe I even have moves like this with tempo, but I think I should start by undoubling my c-pawn. It's a free pawn. If he doesn't take back, he's not going to take back with a piece. And if he takes back this way, he opens his king up a little bit. He does open his king up a little bit to try to open the position. If I go here, he gets a pawn, I get a queen, he gets a queen, I get a bishop. That's good for me. If I go here, he moves his queen somewhere. What's the point of that move? No point, really. I don't know what to do. I'm going to give this check. I think that's what I'm going to do. Now that he exposes king, I'm going to give this check and take this, which threatens this. What was I going to do, though, if he went here? I guess knight a5. Knight takes a5. Pawn takes. Knight takes. Alright, but he didn't do that. Instead, he goes knight here now, hitting my queen, saying I can't go in. That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. So now what though? Because he's just gonna close everything down. That's annoying. Whatever, I'm just gonna keep it to its most active square. He could kind of shut my bishop down, but then he also shuts his own stuff down too. He could open his stuff up, but instead he shuts it down. I think I'm gonna go with a tempo move on the queen. I didn't calculate, just instinct with a minute 50 on my clock. I can always go here and push. I feel like this sack at some point does not really work. He's playing without a bishop if I can. Okay, so he moves his queen to the dark squares, attacks my knight. But I'm not sure what that does. So I'm going to continue my pawn advance, supported by the rook. He takes this pawn and opens up his rook, so that's a little scary, but I'm not convinced that it does anything. He can't put a rook here. I'm going to continue my pawn advance. Now this pawn's hanging, and my rook is about to be opened up, potentially. He can't take because the knight hangs. King over, pawn takes. King over, pawn takes. So he can't take, he can't move his king. So what does he do? He can't go here either. And if he just goes here. Okay, so now he's setting up for the queen coming in. Wait a second, what the heck? And if I go check, he's just gonna run away this way. And if I take here, he gives me this check and that's mate. If I castle, yeah, what if I castle? Connect my rooks, no checks. Now I'm threatening checkmate in 2. See, he was threatening forced checkmate in 2, but now I'm threatening not forced checkmate in 2. A takes B, and then rook at the corner. So he goes queen here, but this isn't a checkmate. So I'm gonna do this, and I don't see how he stops mate in 1. Unless he just sacks his queen and stuff to make it like mate in 2 or 3. His king can't move legally. And none of his pieces can... Look at that checkmate. That's such a crazy construction. It's pretty cool though. And so we do it. Sharp position. Castle at the last second, like move 30 almost. But we pull out a beautiful checkmate construction with 2 pawns. I mean, how do you even get it there? But that was a lot of fun. We keep climbing. Some fun ideas. We run out of time. We keep doing it. Submit your rapid games. Good luck in your climb.